was a purveyor of rock and roll. She was a vision in her stilettos, a silhouette like a winding road. Come on, mama, what you got for me? Come on down to the land of the free. I see you walking and I'm coming behind. Want you to rock me in your animal hide. Oh yeah. He was a nightlife impresario. We know you boned him on the down low. Spinning records at the rock show, sounding good on the audio. And you were dancing like a scene queen, shaking your pony to the libertines. Flashes popping fashion magazines, looking legal but you're only 17. Oh. Party was a real blast. Black cherry seltzer shots are very fast. Rockin' Decepticon and Outcast, some kind of fashion iconoclast. Dollar pizza and a shoot on the street. You never know who you're gonna meet. Spread on the pavement with your Prada bag. Don't show your mama, just remove the tag.
Hey guys, it's Jess with rBeatz Sessions, and today I've got a super captivating guest, David Pattillo, also known as Strange Majik, a songwriter producer. David, how's it going?
Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm good. So I'm going to give our listeners like a little rundown. So let me just let them know that, yes, you're a songwriter, producer. You've written for Motown and Universal. Emmy-nominated co-producer of PBS's Live from the Artist's Den, which is an acclaimed concert series. You've worked with the Beastie Boys, Public Enemy, the Black Crowes, Robert Plant, Sonic Youth, all these people. Very, very cool. Shared a stage with Wallflowers, Daddy Longlegs, Mystery Lights, and more. And Deli Magazine out of New York City dubs you a blues rock cult hero of that city. So I would have to say, I totally agree. And you just recently released an album called NYC Animal, which we're going to get digging into that here soon. But first, I just wanted to start off with the background. You know, these are incredible accolades. You know, like how did we get here? How did this start?
Eventually got from, I was a Florida kid, and but I was in Seattle, in Olympia, Washington, actually, and my parents were in Seattle, and my dad was, he was kind of like the Don Draper of Seattle, and was an ad guy, and he had a job opportunity to come down to Palm Beach and work for developers down there doing these big developments, and so we moved when I was a kid, and I grew up, I went from the Pacific Northwest, the mossy woods, to the beautiful beaches of Palm Beach, and kind of got bored pretty quick as a young kid and learned to play guitar, and eventually just wanted to get out of Florida, and made my way up to Boston for college, and went to Emerson in Boston. And when I was there, I was in a band called Tour de Force that did really well, actually, for an unknown band. And we ended up having a huge show at the Berkeley Performance Center, and it created a lot of buzz and a lot of controversy too, because we were young and we emulated the Beatles. We were obsessed with the Beatles. So we were a
Yeah, how
great
can you not
harmony
be? Yeah.
band, and yeah, and so eventually people just said to me, "Yeah, you got to go to New York. You got to go to New York." Which I don't think now is really so true. It's changed a lot, but in those days it really was. Um,
Right.
and I think my first experience coming to New York City was, coming through on route to Boston, to, on the bus or something. But I had written a fan letter I really wanted to work with Nile Rodgers. I thought he was like the ideal producer. So I thought to myself, well, how can I get his attention? How can I get his attention? Because I had no connections, nothing. And I wrote him a fan letter in crayon that was like in
No
different colors
way.
crayon, and kind of drew on it and was like, yo, man, you're the best, blah, blah, blah. I love your music. I just wrote like how important the music that he made was to me, and the different people he produced, namely like David Bowie, Let's Dance, and Madonna, and it was
Yeah.
like Duran Duran, Notorious, and those records were all happening at that time. And so it was very funny. I got a hold of his manager, and his manager's like, what are these letters? Who are you? And I was able to talk my way in for a meeting. And that was my first New York music business experience, was meeting Nile Rodgers when he sat at his Miss Pac-Man and played Pac-Man while he talked to me. Never looked up. He's like, "Hey, man, I really like your track, man. Sounds good, man." Because we had done a remake. We had done a remake of "I Want Your Love" with this little band I had at the time. He's like, "Really, yeah, track sounds good, man. Track sounds good." Never looked at me once, and I was like, that is such bullshit. And I went out of there thinking, like, his manager was very nice. But I thought, like,
Hmm.
screw Nile Rodgers. I'm done with this shit or whatever. And just, and ended up, of course now, I still love Nile Rodgers, but it was my first sort of introduction into like the big producer cool, and like, oh, you're that when you get introduced to people in the business when you're starting out, it's classist, in a sense that the young performers are not, they're like, well, you got work to do, you got experience and all, you've got to you've got to get more experience
Yeah.
before you can even
Yeah.
tell me you're going to play me a song. You know what I mean? Which is
Right.
complete bullshit, but that's how it went. So that was my introduction. It was like, hey, here you go, New York. That, and
Wow.
having a meeting with a lawyer telling me talent borrows, genius steals. And then that always
Hmm.
stuck with me,
Yeah.
that stuck with me. And if you think about every great artist, David Bowie, Prince, I mean, the
Right.
Beatles, the Stones, it's all stolen. And
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
steal and you make it your own. You steal and you make it
Yeah.
your own. So
It's
anyway,
just this collective, evolution of creation, and that's, how we ride the tide. So,
ooh, I like
that's
that.
incredible. That's incredible that you wrote it in crayon. I find that so great.
I don't think you could
So,
do it email and crayon though.
yeah, I mean, hey, listen, it's going to stand out. I want to know also, you've got a lot of, writing and collaboration credits going on here, with this Motown Universal stuff. Can you tell me more about that? Like, I'm so fascinated with the whole, either staff writing or just writing as a whole other branch of the industry and not being a front person, which we're going to get into why there's the alter ego of Strange Magic too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tell me more about that writing side of it with Universal and all that.
Well, I met a couple of producers that, through my time, I met a bunch of different producers in New York, but I met these two guys called the Berman Brothers that were, they still are, they're still around, but they had done, uh, at the time, it was a couple years after, just done Who Let the Dogs Out. So they were, rolling in the dough. They had kind of made their name with doing like those club hits that were like another night, another night.
Oh yeah, I
I
love
think
that.
those band, like those things.
Yeah,
Everything was like, this is your night tonight. Everything's going to be all right. They were like, oh, we found
yeah.
out if you put "night" in the title, it will be a hit. So they had all these things, and they taught me a lot about like songwriting. And so I ended up co-writing with them, and they brought me these songs from Germany that were already hits, but they didn't have they had German lyrics. So I was like, well, they were like, we want you to write new lyrics, So I kind
Yeah.
of got in as like a lyricist and a melody guy, and so I rewrote the lyrics to this song, and they had a kid, a really young kid that they found with a fantastic voice, and so they gave me that opportunity to write for him, and he ended up getting signed to Maverick Records to Guy Oseary, who was Madonna's main man, at
Yes.
that time,
Yeah.
and
Right.
that was like, I can't remember the date, but it was like early 2000s, I guess. Um,
Wow.
and there was this band called the Deuce Project that ended up coming out on Maverick, and I ended up writing three of the songs that got them signed. So at
Wow.
that point, I said, okay, that was cool. And then we did it again for another band and a couple things in Germany. And then I said to myself, well, if and the other thing that I was doing for them was kind of scouting and trying to find them talented artists. So I said, well, why don't I do this for myself and find like my own talented artist? So I ended up meeting a guy in Nashville, and he had um, knew this young girl who played piano and was really talented and wrote these songs, but she didn't really have the strongest voice, and she was like very very quite intelligent, and had um, um, she had a lot of talent, but as a piano player, and she had
Yeah.
done like arranging, kind of like she was using like I think Fruity Loops at that time or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And anyway, we I flew down and met with her, and then I was like, okay, she seems like she's got potential, but her voice had a very unique style to it that was not. She reminded me a bit of Amy Mann.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, that's different, that's different. So um, we ended up working together for like, I don't know, 5 years, and or three, maybe within 3 years we had. She had great ideas. She had great ideas, but she just wasn't that good. So I was like, how can we get her to be better? And I ended up
Mm-hmm.
hooking up with some friends of mine in Europe, because I had toured Europe as an artist, as a solo, like playing like blues cafes and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
reconnected with these guys, and I said, I'm working with this young artist. Could I come over, and I'll get a backup band there with me on guitar, and we'll back up this girl, and we'll just do a bunch of shows, because it'll be under the radar, and she'll be able to get good. Because you can't really. I think the trickiest thing as a musician is, how do you get good? And you get good in front of people. And it's the same way that I've been
Mm.
able to get good having my residency in New York at Bell Rev, is that it's one thing to practice, practice, practice. You got to do that, but to be in front of people and to react is really where the magic happens, and also
Yeah.
where the learning happens. So I was able to
Yeah.
take her to Europe, and we did. I remember it was like 15 shows in 12 days, and they were all different, like a youth center, and it was all,
Wow.
when you tour in Europe, it's all different kinds of things. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Usually there's no monitors, and you're fending for your life on stage to just get it to sound good or whatever. and uh
Yeah.
and she came through it with shining colors. And so when we got back to New York, um there was another songwriter that she was working with, and he had a song. They were supposed to do a commercial for like Ford, and it ended up that like through a series of circumstances, she cut that, and then Linda Perry heard it, and I was literally within like 2 weeks, we had like a record deal in my email inbox.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
so, and she and I had worked out like our business stuff so that I would do like a spec production agreement, but I didn't want to just sign her as a spec producer because I was a young producer. And so I said, well, we'll manage you and produce you. So I ended up managing her and producing her. So it was like a lot of work,
Yeah.
and a lot of, she was very young. She was like 19, I think, when she got signed. So it was like, a lot of the management was like, okay, it's 10 a.m., get out of bed, calling her on the phone and yelling. And, it was
Right.
a lot of that, but it was a great experience. And, obviously working with Linda Perry was unbelievable. And then, so we, we flew out to LA, and then she kind of went around to some different people and was co-writing with different people. And one of them was Linda, and in Linda's studio. And you know who Linda Perry is, right? From Four
Oh
Non
yeah.
Blondes.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
Christina Aguilera and Pink and all that.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So Linda and she worked on this song. She and Linda worked on this song, and she brought it back. I picked her up in the car, and she brought it back, and we put on the CD that they burned, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't think it's anything. I don't think it's anything." And then I heard it, and then it was like, "Oh, mama, 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 mama," and then it did this like cool turnaround thing where it went like to the 2 minor and came back around to the 5 or something. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, wow, that's cool. And that was like the little Linda Perry trick that she did, you know.
Ah.
But Linda, and then so I took it and wrote lyrics for it and the melody, and we ended up cutting it. It became this great song. And I remember Linda like saying to me, "I can't believe you did anything with that song," because I thought it was totally dead in the water, you know. And we turned it into a really
Wow.
beautiful song. So that was nice, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the process, you know. It's like you don't know
Yeah.
where the jobs are going to come from or whatnot, you know. And
Right.
most of my life, I've really solely focused on being me as an artist. So I wasn't as focused as working with other people until I got into that thing, and with the Berman Brothers. And then, I had another artist at the time that was an incredible singer, and she just did the dumbest thing we were at the top of like Sony Music, and the guy was ready to like do a deal, and he's like, well, do you think the music is, do you like the music? And I love it, and she says, but I wanted more hip hop. And then
Oh wait.
the whole thing like went
Oh,
like,
there we go.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just
So,
wild
like
when you're,
when you're just like,
yeah, I mean,
shut up,
right?
you
No, it
know.
sounds like you really know how to, work that whole Rubik's cubes, wearing all the hats to get something to come to life. And I think that that's, it takes a whole range of talents. And so what I want to do next is talk about your newest album. Okay. So uh,
Cool.
you guys, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we get back, we're gonna definitely dig into the new album NYC Animal by Strange Magic. So you guys stay tuned.
To turn up the volume on your ambition. Submit your tracks today, and here's the reason why. With rBeatz, you're not simply uploading, you're broadcasting your unique resonance to a global audience. Put your hesitations aside. We're offering you the golden opportunity to have your music reviewed and aired on our radio station, absolutely free of charge. You've pondered, perhaps even sampled the others. Now it's time to experiment with the finest. At rBeatz, we're dedicated to you. We're not just a platform, we're your spotlight, and your music merits the stage. Share your social handles, and as soon as your music goes live on rBeatz, you'll be the first to know. We're not just spinning tracks, we're cultivating a vibrant community of artists and aficionados who revel in distinctive soundscapes. rBeatz Radio, the stage where your music receives the applause it's worthy of. Submit your music today and transform your sound into a sensation. In essence, rBeatz your music.
All right, guys, NYC Animal by Strange Magic. The latest album came out in January of this year. You guys saw a clip. Well, actually, you saw the whole video up at the very front of the interview. Here, let me just lead in with I read online. Medium says Strange Majik is the love child of 70s funk rock, psychedelia, and 2000s indie sleaze. His sound and aesthetic captures a rose-colored snapshot of city life. I love it. Okay, totally agree. NYC Animal is a vignette of the Big Apple's electric spirit and undying allure. I will say, it's a damn good time. This album, I put it on and I feel everything I, would hope to feel there. I've got some favorites, I loved Nomadic Girl, Black Lashes, Wise Up. I liked the Eastern flair on
Oh,
Nomadic
nice.
Girl. Yeah, I really, this is my favorite part, is just this talk about the art. Tell me about this. I say baby, but it's an album, but it's a baby at the same time, right? What's the process and the writing? Just give me a rundown. What was this about, the process and the influences, all of that?
Yeah. So I was coming home from the studio, and I live in the East Village. My studio is in the Lower East Side, so I just kind of walk across Ludlow Street, where all the bars and happenings are going on. And as I was walking home, the girl who looked like strangely like Edie Sedgwick, like hailed me from across the street and said, "Get in here, come over here." And I thought, well, she looks cool. I'll check out what's going on. And I walked into Pianos, which is a great classic rock and roll bar in the Lower East Side, which has now become more urban, like more of a hip hop club. But they were doing this rock and roll night, and as I walked in the door, I ended up running into a bunch of people I knew, because New York's a small town that way, Manhattan for sure. And I walked into this party, and it was all kids from like 18 to 25 maybe, and they were listening to like Le Tigre, Outcast, Franz Ferdinand, it was like all
Mhm.
Y2K and like 80s, like occasionally you'd get like The Cure or the Smiths or whatever, but
Yeah.
literally like LC, um, and just having a blast and dancing and just getting down. And this is at a time where it was two years ago in the summer. I guess it'll be 3 years this summer. Um, so it was a time when rock is really feels like it's back in New York now, because there's a bunch of great bands that are happening in New York City that are playing rock music now. But at that time, it was really feeling like, wow, nobody's really listening to rock, and it just was like kind of a lot of this kind of anesthetized, you know, incidental music that's very nice to listen to, but it's more like I kind of think of it as music for coding, so it's like
Yeah.
you know um and to hear and see these, and also just like pop and hip hop, if you're going out, I mean, hip hop's great, but the pop what's happening now in pop, you would go out and see a lot of that at clubs. So to see them playing, Franz Ferdinand, Take Me Out, or Decepticon by Le Tigre or something like that was great, And
Yeah.
it was this DJ Jackson, and he and I became friends. So I started hanging out at this thing. It was every Monday night, and this is what happens in New York. You get these great parties, and they're the zeitgeist of the moment, and then poof, they're gone. And that's what happened. And there was these photographers were coming down. This guy, Cobra Snake, who photographed like Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton in the 90s, and the Y2K stuff. He was photographing all these things. So they had like this guy who was there at the time, that whole Y2K indie sleaze thing. And then and he was photographing me, and then my band would play sometimes, and then um but it was more about like who's getting photographed, like one of those things. And like a real grungy version of Studio 54 or something, like you're going to the get photographed, and everybody was there to get photographed and be like, oh, yeah, this Cobra Snake photographed me. So I was like, oh, he photographed me, it was an honor. And another guy, Matt Weinberger, who's now since sort of carried the torch for Cobra Snake in New York because he's doing these great music parties now. But it kind of blossomed at this party. And literally there's a line that says, flat on the pavement with your Prada bag, spread on the pavement with your Prada bag, don't tell your mama, just remove the tag. Where Cobra Snake was photographing this girl on the pavement in like just this little skirt and a top with a Prada bag and like acting like she was dead or whatever, that whole thing. And that particular girl, got inspired by her and this other one that was this Edie Sedgwick type. And then I just kind of created the Nomadic girl after her. And she was the New York City Animal. She's kind of like Sid Vicious with lipstick on. She was a punk rocker in her own way, but
Yeah.
but very brand conscious. Like, I think that was the thing with punk, is that, they were like, okay, we'll go to the thrift store and wear whatever. But these kids are like, they're extremely brand conscious because they grew up with social media and the internet. But in this case, none of that mattered, with the exception that I was trying to decipher, like, why is this not like punk rock? Like, what's the difference? Like what's different about it? And it was so it was almost like it had the feeling of being almost elitism, but grunge at the same time. So
Right.
anyway, that's the New York City Animal. And then Un Nouvel Amour is the same thing, which is, a girl, and it's like there's a few lines in there that kind of mention cocaine or some version of it. And it's that lifestyle. The lifestyle that was kind of like one night at Paul's and watching the people and seeing, how what they were watching, the antics between the guys and girls, and sort of just being a reporter. And then also it's a bit of a nod to, old French movies. I'm obsessed with French New Wave, so a little Serge Gainsbourg nod in there where I'm speaking a little French,
Right.
But then, and Manhattan is Back was me just like being like, yeah, okay, shit's back. It's like COVID's over, we're out. We made the
Yeah.
video, and for me, there's always a song that I'm always rewriting. David Bowie song called "Stay" on every record, and Manhattan is Back is basically David Bowie's "Stay" rewritten.
I love it. And we have let's go ahead and roll some of Manhattan is Back. We've got it queued
great,
up.
yeah.
Johnny, let's take a peek at that real quick.
Some future superstar walking down the street, sidewalk steaming, two cops on the beat, international flavor, ladies looking fine. I think I'm floating. Yeah, I can feel my spine. Who's gold on my finger? Why you wasting time? Some kind of junkie dude on a city bike. I was feeling home runs, but all I got is strikes. Oh yeah, around here.
I love it. Manhattan is Back. That video is it's so fun to me. It's when you tell me it's, post COVID, that it's back. It's so lively. You're riding around on this bike. I want to hear more about the shoot and how fun that was to do out there.
Yeah. So the director, we had done New York City Animal together, and he's fantastic. And I said, let's do another one. And so I wanted to do Manhattan is Back because I love it. And I said, let's just shoot it around, the town, and do a love letter to New York, and it's in our little neighborhood. It's mostly in, where we shot it is on Canal Street, just below, like really just it would be sort of like it would be considered Chinatown, a little bit east of Chinatown maybe, but it's on the Bowery, because Bowery is kind of the delineation point for Chinatown, and Little Italy, Chinatown, right in there, and I guess Chinatown would be below Canal, so I guess it would be east of Little Italy on the Bowery. And then, so we walked around Little Italy, and you can see those shots. That's all Little Italy, and there's some Chinatown in there, and on the Bowery. And Bishop is the name of the director. He's a super talented kid, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll get you eating pizza." And I said, "Yeah, I want to do this." And there's just a number of references. It's a lyric that's sort of a ready-made lyric that I did. Sometimes I'll really craft out a lyric, and on this one, sometimes they're more what's off the top of my head, and because it has like sometimes there's a magic to that people have their own reaction to the way the words fall, and if you're saying things that aren't just like personal feelings, if you're throwing out images, and it can kind of piece together in a way that the mind can connect it the way the mind connects it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not so much about
Yeah.
what my idea was, So,
Right.
so that idea of, and then we had the junkie dude on the city bike. I was feeling home runs, but all I got is strikes. So of course we had to do the city bike driving around, which I do take city bikes everywhere. So that was fun. And then we found one of those little mini baseball bats in Little Italy and used that. But there's other scenes where I'm trying on like the cheap sunglasses. I was like, oh, we got to do the cheap sunglasses, because that was always a thing with
That's so
New York.
great. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, you really
Yeah.
know how to show it off. I mean, like, now I wanted to also talk to you about the development of the alter ego Strange Magic, because you've worked with all other bands and done all these collabs. Can you tell me kind of how that came to be?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a band called the Dead X's, which was me and a drummer, and it was really like thrash blues. I was playing a lot of slide guitar, and just it was all in the hands and fingers. Like that's what I do. Obviously, I'm a guitar player, so it was really high energy. Those records, you can get them on Spotify and Apple Music, whatever, and it was great, and we had really good response. We licensed a lot of those songs. A lot of the sports brands really loved it. But I was getting frustrated because it was just the two of us, and I every time we tried to expand it, it didn't feel natural. Like I wanted it to be. It was more like a White Stripes, Black Keys kind of thing, and I wanted to stay in that gut bucket, realm. So in 2017, 2018, I got an offer to do a radio show in the UK and host this show for this company called Amazing Radio, which is based in the north of England. And so they're like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, well, just call me Strange Magic. And then as I was doing that radio show, I was like listening to a lot of the bands that were happening and stuff. And I was like, I'm kind of like doing myself a disservice not to do a fully orchestrated record. Like I've done these 2-piece like rock records. And sometimes you're like, oh, I have all these skills. And yet you're limiting yourself to a tool set to actually get better at what you do, right?
Mhm.
It's like if you're a painter, it's like, okay, I'm only going to do these particular pastels, or I'm only going to paint in black and white on this, or whatever,
Mhm.
and make it work, and that's what the Dead X's was like, painting in black and white, and I wanted to paint in Technicolor. So for
Mhm.
me, that's what Strange Magic was the ability to open it up, to open up the palette,
Yeah.
and to have more musicians, and then it birthed in 2015 with Lights On, and then 2016 was Raised on Rock and Roll. In 2017, I did 2 EPs, thinking like, "Ooh, this is better than putting out an album." But now I kind of want to just meld them back into an album, because I think the EPs get lost on Spotify the way they set it up.
Mm.
And then 2019, I did Channel T. 2020, I had and these are all full length records. In 2020, I was like, yes, March 3rd, 2020, it's going to be this great date. And then, so
Oh boy.
or maybe it was March was the release date. I was like, yeah, 3/9/2020, 3/9/20, it's going to be great. And of course, the record released, and it was the day that COVID peaked in New York City. So that record fell on deaf ears, which was sad because the 2020 record is really cool. I'm really proud of that record. And the band was at its peak performance state because we had been playing so much. We were playing every Tuesday in Tribeca, and the band was just at peak. So that came out,
Wow.
COVID hit, that was like boom, nothing. Then I did a COVID record called Strange Magic and the Righteous Wrongs, and brought in different guys, but mostly me and my son did a lot of that record. And then after that, New York City Animal was the focus. So been over the last year, and then I did over the last year, I've been doing singles, and then on January 2024 dropped the full length album, and it's also available on vinyl,
That's
which
pretty
has been
sweet.
really
Yeah.
cool. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
And we got
Well,
t-shirts.
it's a great album. I
Thank you.
absolutely love it. And what I want to do next though is kind of dig into we're going to get to know Strange Magic on a little more personal level after this break real quick with a little round of Never Have I Ever. So stay tuned.
Ooh.
Rhythm meets passion, where your brand dances to a beat of its own. This is rBeatz.com, your one-stop solution for all things music. Imagine your brand soaring high on the wings of a pulsating beat. Picture the thrill of a crowd, energized by a soundtrack that perfectly encapsulates your vision. That's what we do here at rBeatz.com. Our mission is to intertwine your story with a unique rhythm that captures the heart of your brand. Whether you're a startup looking to make a grand entrance or an established brand aiming to redefine your sound, we've got you covered. From adrenaline-pumping tracks for a sports brand to soothing melodies for a wellness venture, our beats are as diverse as your needs. Remember, it's not just about the beat, it's about the rhythm of your brand. So come, join us at rbeatz.com, where your brand finds its beat. rbeatz.com, your brand, our beats.
All right. A round of Never Have I Ever with David Pattillo, aka Strange Magic. Here we go. Are you ready?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Sounds a little
It's not
scary.
gonna be wild. It's like PG-13 around here. It's gonna be fine. All right.
All
Never have
right.
I ever stayed up all night to finish a song.
Absolutely.
Of course, I figured that's an easy one. I had to give you that, right? Okay. Now, a little bit juicier here. Never have I ever secretly on a client used pitch correction or a fix that you just didn't tell them about.
That's a good one. It's
Whether you want to say it out loud or not is up to you.
yeah. I have a lot of funny auto-tune stories.
Oh, I
I
love them.
don't use it. I don't use it on my stuff. I
Yeah.
I don't. I tend to push the artist to get a good take.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's something I'm really like in love, if it's some of the artist and stuff, when I did all those, I had to correct some of the artist request. I'm not going to tell you who requested it because that would be pretty bad, but that would be good. It would be pretty juicy if I told you. But um, yeah, I haven't done it behind their back by any means.
I gotcha. I gotcha. I feel like,
Luckily, I haven't
if you,
had to.
yeah, hey, if you've got a really great take and you've got like one syllable out of whack, I really don't see the issue with that. I'm more for, an organic take as well, but it is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
funny. You never know who pops in the studio sometimes, they come back in
right.
and, oh, I sounded really good. Yeah, you sure? Yeah, you did. So, all right, never have I ever used a thesaurus or rhyme zone to complete your lyrics to kind of fit that puzzle
Always,
together.
always, always,
Yeah.
always. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a great
You
tool.
know,
Yeah.
I feel like one of my influences growing up was Mariah Carey because her vocabulary taught me so many, like people they really underestimate that. But yes, to this day, I have an extended vocabulary because of old school Mariah. Moving on, played a
Wow.
show and got paid in drinks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I stopped drinking, which is a real problem.
So how creative are they going to get paying you here? What are we doing?
I know. Yeah, it still happens. It still happens.
Oh yeah, that's great. All right, now for the final one. This is pretty juicy. Never have I ever fell in love with an audience member. Maybe you lock
Ooh,
eyes when you're on stage. I gotta see that girl.
I
That's never
did. I
happened.
married one.
No way! Is that so? That's the story of your marriage. That's great. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, she wasn't quite a groupie, but we met at CBGB's. That was pretty wild. I remember seeing her at CBGB's, and I don't remember who were we seeing play. I don't, or did I play? I guess I was playing. She saw me play, and then and I thought she was gorgeous and really cool, and she was wearing like a motorcycle jacket and super babe, and then I she was best friends with my friend's girlfriend at the time, and then so she came. We got her to come to Brownies, which was in this is back, some '90s rock memorabilia here, but we she came and saw me play at Brownies, and then she wrote her name Dina and her phone number with a little smiley face, and then when I got the smiley face on the note, I was like, all right, that's it, I'm in.
That's wonderful. That's so great. So music has given you, all these great joys out of your life. I find that really great. So now, David Pattillo, thank you so much for being on our Beat Sessions today. I really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you, Jess.
All right, guys, I'm Jess with our Beats, and we'll catch you next time.
Woo.